What's up, y'all? Today I'm going to be showing you a little work in progress that I have and teaching you how to make Ravey saw stacks like I have here. So I'll go ahead and play this project so you know what you're getting into.
But you don't give a fuck. Sweet self, it's anything you want. Let me think I hate you, but it's over. Another night, sexy phone. I know you think I hate you, but I'm not so. Just text me in the morning, I know you're alone. But you don't give a fuck.
And so to get started here, I'm going to be showing y'all how to make this rave saw. Which is probably the Serum Patch that I've used the most across all of my projects that I've ever done. And then this little Serum lead that kind of accompanies it or like accents it. But to start out before that, I want to give credit to the vocalists on this one. I ripped the vocals, so it's not like they worked with me, but I just want to make sure they get credit, which is Alden's song Text Me, and the yellow one here that starts halfway is Dane's song Portal. So a little bit before we start doing the sound design part of this, I just want to talk about how like the melodies work together. So I have two different melodies on this one. One playing like a lower saw, and then the other one's playing that lead layer. And as you can see here, there's a little bit of like, it seems like there's no overlap, but really what it is if you go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes, we're kind of going with the C down here. The 7th of the C is the G. So it's like a lot of following of that. Like if I move this, as you can see, there's some shared notes, right? Those shared notes towards the end. Let me go to the C position that I was in. And so that's the bass versus the lead. And then the other thing is if you're like trying to get ravey ethereal patterns or whatever, or like, you know, slower, when you put the drums in, like this is a whip that's like desperately in need of drums. But like if you're working with something where you have a lot of space in between like a couple of note flourishes, it kind of like really builds tension between like, let's say this point right here and the next point, which would be like right here where notes happen. Right? Hopefully that makes sense. Basically it's like a good way to like, instead of having like arps and notes like this here that are constantly changing and moving like these two layers. I'm actually really, when I'm doing this, I'm giving space for my other elements to come in later. And also like, the simpler your bass is, the more complex your like things that you bring in and have around it are, right? This rave saw, like I said, probably the most versatile or useful thing that I've ever made in Serum as far as like melodies go. And I'm kind of gonna go in here, and there's no post effects. That's one of the great things about this. There's some post effects on the lead, but the saw is literally, if we go in here, very, very simple. So it's going to be, starting out, we're going to get oscillator A to be a detuned saw. I don't want to change the settings too much, but as you can see, I brought the detuning down. It's all the way, as many voices as you can. And then the blending, I didn't even change. The other thing, envelope 1 is, instead of being a sustain, I just brought it down some and made it pretty long to fit with my long notes in the beginning, right? So there can be some decay on that, right? Then the next thing I added was an MG low 6 that's also being modulated by that envelope 1. I think that might be the only modulation in this patch. Then the next thing will go in order of importance. So the next most important thing, if you're just doing the simplest version of this patch, is you want to put oscillator B to be pitched down as well, or however you want that pitched. And then 15 voices at detune. And the reason for that is like, if you have 16 voices, that means there's no center voice. So your blend like really is just affecting how like washed out you want it to be. Whereas your blend on this one, like if you turn it, if I turn this off and turn it really low, you get to where it's like almost a mono sound there. I'm gonna flip this back to how it was. So I have my blend relatively high. which just basically gives you like a central voice there. Now the other thing that you might hear here is it's not, you know, that's the saw that you start with. If you turn sync on and then pitch it up 3 exactly, that is the same thing as a 7th. It's up an octave and a 7th from there. So then we have that, and when you mix that together with the other oscillator and send those through the filter, you get that nice big stabby plucky sound. So then I'm going to add a sub oscillator, and this one's almost like negligible. It's so, the volume's so low on this. But as you can hear, like if I pump the volume, just gives it a nice strong like sub layer to, you know, continue on through the filter. Everything's getting sent through the filter on this one. Then the last thing that I have as far as like sound sources on this, some noise, which like I've turned the noise up a little bit on this. Just makes it a little brighter. So if I like kick it to just the noise, so that's all the layers together. Then we have a filter. And what that filter is doing is basically I wanted to add something where I could automate the low pass into this and kind of like change the amount of energy. So we have the Alden vocal in the beginning, and then this is the low pass that at 100% it's all the way up. Right, compare that to like this. It really takes away if you, especially if you have the lead going. Right, so that compared to this. Right, when I have this low pass down, it's adding energy to this and just making it a much less full section. So I kind of just sweep this in, going into every ending section where I have more stuff. Right, because I have these high notes. Then as you can see, I sweep in to go with the filter and the change here where we bring the Dane vocal in. So I'll turn just these elements on. So I think that's pretty much going to do it for that patch. So let's talk about the lead layer now. So the lead is a very similar patch here. The only difference, so then with the lead layer, the main differences are going to be it's not pitched as far down, and then I just have ring modulation and a chorus on it. So this is like the most bare version of the sound. It's just a pretty low sustain on a really long decay, envelope 1. Then I put a 2 modulation sources onto this filter here. So it's going to be this really like plucky envelope, and then this longer like woofier one. So what the purpose of that is if you have this, if you have 2 different filter sources and this one's like quite a bit quicker than this one, it almost adds like a pop to the top end of it. So right, you hear the pop that puts in there. The other thing that I've done here is ring modulation from A. So what that does is just kind of gives it a little, it's almost unhearable. So with both saws mixed together, you can't really hear it. It just takes a little sharpness off of the oscillator B saw. So then I have those sent into there, and then I put a chorus on it. And there's also a filter, the low pass filter here is being modulated by my envelope 1. Just again like changes the brightness and the width and the timbre of it or whatever. So then going into the post effects, this one has 2 really simple effects. So one is a low pass or a high pass filter, and the other one is a big boomy reverb. So what this does, like feel how different that feels from this. Right, they're kind of sitting in the same space and like taking each other over. This is just in this's way, and like this is just a mixing thing that you'll pick up like the more and more you produce. This works, that doesn't work, especially when you like get to the mastering phase. You're going to be like slamming both of the, or if you're like doing hard EDM masters, you're going to be slamming both of those into some limiter or clipper, and it's going to really mess your signal up. You're going to have a bad time. So just know that's for mixing. Then we have the EQ here. I'm sorry, not the EQ, the reverb, which is just a super long tailed reverb. The other thing that I have in this one that I did take advantage of is I'm using mono with legato not being on. So what legato would do is it would say don't re-trigger these every note hit, just trigger the first time, and that would mess the sound up. So you hear how it's just playing these notes without re-triggering those envelopes? I want it to re-trigger, so I turn legato off. And then I also have the bend going, so as you can see here and here probably. See how it kind of has a quick little bend on all those notes? So that's what makes that up. So with all that now on, this is what we end up with all the effects and stuff on. And I'll skip to here and just say one more thing that happens right at this point. So as you can see, the melody changes, but the only thing that really changes is I've taken all of this, moved it over here. I basically duplicated the thing and just pitched it up an octave. And the reason for that is I have this Rave lead that comes in. And as you can see, these two are kind of sitting in the same space here. If I play these separate, right, that's where that is. And that's pretty strong right in there too. So if I move this up, it both like increases the energy and also gives space for that lower element. And then also there's another lower element that comes in, which is just an ARP. And just to show that this is something that's valuable to do, and like you should never say like, don't ever use presets. This is literally just this preset in Poison, the pad Retrovox, that I might have edited some of the stuff to, and then just sent that into a couple of effects. But I'm not really going to talk about those because it's not too important. But it just helps add another little layer of texture to this big like booming section right here. So with that, y'all, that's gonna do it for this one. So thank you for watching. If you're not on Patreon or whatever, go get on Patreon. There's monthly sample packs. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.